questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. All right, so today is Zone 1 for the local Best Shalomers. All right, so you heard in the announcements that we do these meetings 3 times a month, Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. The Zone 1 is broken up to alternating months between the local people here, which means, by the way, local people here meaning anybody in the building. So if you happen to not live here, but you're visiting, you're welcome to get up and ask a question, okay? It's just for everybody here in the building. And then if you're online, okay, you are welcome to, if you're in Zone 1, type in questions, etc. And I can picture right now a very confused Janet Hoffman thinking, okay, I'm not there locally, but I am a local person. Do I get to ask a question? I'll think about it. All right, so we'll see how the questions go, okay? Now, for those of you that are watching that aren't familiar with us, I have recognized over all the years of doing this that people generally have lots of questions, okay? And that's all well and good. They don't always get a forum or place or a right format for this to be done where you can ask you questions. Plus, I realize that your questions are sometimes going to be the same questions other people might ask. So if you ask it, I can answer it, and then everybody gets the answer. And we have it recorded, and that's all well and good. Now, for you live streamers, okay, I want to say something, and I want to apologize for something. Okay. It is really challenging for me to get all your questions answered on our Facebook group, all right? So on the m.t.o.i Facebook group. So I will try to print out some of them and answer them in a Zone 1 that's for you live streamers. So I'll try to answer some of them when we get to that place. Otherwise, just try to save your questions for the Zone 1 live stream and try to get them in that way, okay? Because I know some of them have been in there for over a month. It's just because taking the time to figure out the right way to word it, because if I'm going to type it, it's going to be parsed by everybody for every little nuance that I say. A lot easier when I can just speak and say the answer and be more thorough, okay? So I'd rather not do it in typing. People are like, oh, well, you don't want people, it's official here, it's recorded, it's video, it's forever on YouTube. I like it to be available. I just want to make sure that I can be clear, and it's easier for me to be clear speaking than typing, okay? The written word is too susceptible to you interpreting it any way you want. As it is, you already do that with what I say. So if you do it with what I say, forget about it when I type, it's going to be even harder. All right, so we got a few people lined up. We're going to begin with Mr. Michael Condon.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.
So I've got 2 here that come from Ashley. She's up in Catan Bet helping out with them right now.
Okay.
And then I've got one of my own, which may be more appropriate for a Q&A Midrash format if you're going to be doing that after the men and women teaching.
If I'm going to be doing it after what?
Are you going to be doing a Q&A Midrash message as the last message for the roles of men and women teaching?
That's a great idea.
Okay. So I may have one for that.
Good.
But I've got 2 from Ashley here. Is that okay?
All right, so let's everybody get excited about it. So he asked if I was going to do some sort of Q&A midrash sort of question format at the end of the roles of men and women teaching. I think it's a great idea. How many of you like that? I was expecting to get a bunch of them today, which is fine. I can have those. All right, so if you've been waiting to ask your questions about this 4 parts I've done so far with the men and women, go ahead and bring them today, that's fine. If you're still bruised from what I screamed at you guys last night, that's fine too. And you guys can come up. Okay, Michael, start with Ashley's questions.
Okay, I'm actually going to wait till a later date to ask mine. But she's reading Women's Wisdom, and so this one was inspired by that. It says, peace, is it the reason? Because they, men, hunt and fight instinctually, so need peace, and I need to be preoccupied with that, like we're their groundings.
Like, what's the last part?
We are their groundings.
Okay, first of all, I don't normally take questions about materials I didn't produce. Okay, Women's Wisdom is by Rabbi Shalom Arush. And it's a book that I've not read because it actually says, as you open the first page of the book, if you're a man, put it down, don't read it. Okay? And then, of course, the Garden of Peace, which is the man's book, says the same thing. If you're a woman, put this down, don't read it. Okay? And it was just meant so that each one would read their own book and not use it as a weapon against the other one. I am probably going to read it so that when people ask me about it, I know enough what's in it so I can recommend it. All right? My wife has read that one, and I have read the men's book. Okay. But the question is generic enough. So the question is, if the man is out there, sort of call it more in a more primitive way, like out there hunting and bringing home the animal and all that other stuff, am I like his grounding? Am I there like providing shalom and peace? And the answer is yes, that's one of the roles that you do, okay? Because the man's now today we have men and women both out there working. So now you gotta ground each other. You gotta kind of not bring the junk with you back home. If the wife is home with a bunch of kids, she needs a lot of grounding anyway. So I need to clarify this. It's a good point now that you brought that up. Some of you got confused when I talked about, ladies, you need to let him come home and transition from whatever hat he was wearing all day into husband or father role and not just dump a bunch of stuff on him. I don't know how you missed this, but I also said you still need to have your time to transition. And so after he's transitioned for a few minutes, ask him to take the kids and give you your break so you can transition, all right? So just keep doing what you're doing, handling the children, the house, and everything else. Let him have a few minutes. A few minutes doesn't mean 4 hours, guys. All right, half an hour, 20 minutes, what? It shouldn't take you that long to switch gears, okay? Get home, settle down, have a seat for a minute, maybe have something to drink, like a beverage or whatever, and just, to kind of refresh yourself and hug the kids, the wife, and everybody. And then offer for her to know, let me hear whatever's been going on. What do you need from me? What can I help you with? All that kind of stuff. The thing is, we just don't want that stuff being dumped on him the minute he walks in the door, okay? Now, but I want you to know that you should have your opportunity to do that. When he tells you, okay, I'm ready, bring it on, let's go. I've got my grounding, I'm good and settled in, I've shifted what hat I have on, I'm ready for that. And guys, give them that opportunity to go ahead and vent and dump and whatever it is they need to get out of their system after their rough day dealing with the crazy people called children, okay? You've been dealing with customers and employees and coworkers, and they've been dealing with children. Wait, you've been on the same page, actually. You're both dealing with the same thing. All right, and that's really the problem. All right, next question.
Her second question was, if we get lost in our emotions or have a meltdown, is that considered self-idolatry?
No, it's not self-idolatry. It's just weakness, okay? And don't anybody get offended, okay? Because if you get offended, you'll never deal with the problem. Weakness is when emotion drives, okay? You see this when you look at a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and they start having a meltdown, temper tantrum, whatever else, because their emotions are driving. But I don't want to do that, or I want this, and you won't let me have it, or whatever. Anything that doesn't go their way, they're flipping out, because they're 4. If you're flipping out and you're 34, that's a different problem. That's weakness. Now again, I'm not saying we never lose our temper, but sometimes you got to be careful to understand, is it your emotion driving? And that's what was stated in the question, right? That when you're having an emotional meltdown. That's because there's a battle always going on between, metaphorically, your head and your heart, okay? Your logical thinking, reasoning, and your emotional passion and desire, okay? And so, whichever one's stronger always wins. I've said that to you guys many, many times. So the strong, this rules over this, right? The head rules over the heart. The heart's going to still be there, but the head has to decide whether or not to go where the heart says it wants to go. I seem to remember Jeremiah 17:9. It says, the heart is deceptive above all things and desperately sick, or wicked in some translations. That was the beginning of the heart of the matter teaching, right? Jeremiah 17:9. So, no, and it says, who can trust it? Don't ever let your emotions drive. Your emotions are there to let you know how you feel about something. Then you get to decide how you want to respond to how you feel about something. Does that make sense? Well, I don't like that. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, and I realize now I don't like that. But what do I need to do now in response? I can get upset about it, or I can just not do it, or I can just walk away from it. I mean, there's lots of different options. But I do want to know whether I like or don't like something, and also how strongly. Man, I really love that. Or really, man, I can't, that is like, I do not have any interest. I really hate that. That's good information. But now let the head decide what to do with that. How should I respond? Because you have lots of choices. I know you don't think you do because you basically are triggered in your responses automatically. But you have an abundance of choices, okay? All right, so hopefully I answered that question. These are good questions. All of you, this is like group therapy, so everybody should hopefully get a benefit out of it. All right, Mr. John Reich. No, Rabbi Tom, sorry.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, there's been a lot of hoopla on the news lately about UFOs, or as the government says, UAPs, and some seemingly credible people, Air Force and Navy officers, high-ranking officers, even up to admirals, have claimed to have seen actual UFOs, and it seems that there's the government is trying to suppress these things. So my first question is, how should we regard this, if we should at all? And the second one is,
right.
Some people say, well, there is highly intelligent life in other solar systems or other galaxies, and some people say, nope, we're the only ones, we're the first ones and the only ones. So,
Okay, excellent question. And Elder, this is why I told you the other day we needed to address this. Remember that? Okay? I pay attention. I mean, like by pay attention, I mean like to everything that's going on. I have what I call the 40,000-foot view. I zoom out and watch what's going on, and I pay attention, okay? And then I do ask questions as to what I'm seeing. Does it need to be addressed or not? And obviously, with the incredible abundance of attention now being drawn to all of this UFO whatever stuff, right? They're not even calling it that anymore. It's UAP or whatever they're calling it. So they changed the letters just to confuse us, I guess. So for Rabbi Tom and for the rest of the leadership, we're going to talk about this on the 20th, okay? I will have a statement for all of you, okay, as to how to deal with all these things and what to do with them and where that goes. I already have thoughts about how I would want to handle this, but I want to show you structurally how we do things. So this is the kind of thing that I had already intended, and I told Elder that, to be discussed at the next leadership meeting. So Rabbi Tom, we are going to be talking about it on the meeting. Now, for all of you leaders that are watching, and you better be or you're fired. Okay, so all you leaders that are watching from the Leadership Council, I want you to come prepared, not just sitting there to listen to what I say. I want you to bring an opinion, what your thoughts are. That's the point of Leadership Council. It's people coming together and sharing thoughts. I will make the decision as to what we do with the information. That's my job. That's the role of the decision maker at the top. But it's also my job to hear the abundance of information, counsel, and thoughts that we have in the leadership, okay? And so I don't come to leadership necessarily with a hardened idea. I'm open to hear what you say, and you may make a statement that I didn't consider and I might need to add into the mix. And so just for all of you, yes, we're going to address this. It's a very important question because of whether it's, you know, when I was growing up, it was all the hush-hush, Area 51, blah, blah, blah stuff, but it's now literally dominating the news. It's dominating all your social media. And as Rabbi Tom pointed out, very credible-looking people coming right out in public and saying the things that they're saying, okay? And so there's a reason. I'm not sure I know what the reason is yet, but there's a reason why it's happening now. There's a reason why it's happening in such abundance. There's a reason why they're letting us know. And it could be because it is or it isn't true or whatever, but the thing is, there's a reason. Which means that I always ask the question is, why is this happening? Is it important? If it is, why is it important? How should we respond? Okay? So nobody needs to worry about this, at least until we have the meeting and talk to you, because I don't think anything critical is going to happen in the next couple weeks, okay? They're building up to something that's coming somewhere down the line or not, whether they're going to produce something that's phony, whether it's something that's real, whatever. I'm not worried about it, okay? The one thing I can tell you from all of the credible witnesses is really, Every interaction, for the most part, was friendly or nonviolent and not a problem. So I'm not scared of it, neither should you be. Of course, you believe in a creator that has you taken care of, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Amen? All right. But just to show you, when Rabbi Tom asked a question, if you were thinking the same things, these are questions that are allowed. I mean, if you need to know, especially from a spiritual point of view, then you should be asking whoever the spiritual leader is that you're working with. And if that's me, then I should be asked the question, right? Okay, so we will, and by the way, you should all know this also if you're new. I don't duck questions. We don't duck questions, okay? We'll answer questions. Now, there may be something that I don't want to answer at a particular point because it requires a much more full teaching that I have to then put together because of the complexity of the confusions in the issue, if you understand what I'm saying, all right? And so we're not going to do those things, but I don't duck the questions. All right, Mr. John Reich.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.
Just like Mike came up for Ashley, I'm actually up here for Evan because he's helping the kids. His question is, you talk about the signs and wonders that happen in our life, and at least in 4 teachings this year alone, so this must be a common problem amongst us. You would say, do you guys not see the signs and wonders he does in your life? Are you just going to ignore all the miracles he has done for you? So what are the signs and wonders he does in our life that we tend to take for granted, not appreciate, and better yet, not even realize?
All right, so look, every time, pay attention now, every time you hear something from the microphone in a teaching that you did not know before, that answers a question, fixes a problem, clarifies the scripture, that's one of those moments. Because it had to come from above. Don't get all excited that it came from me. Nothing comes from me. I'm just a mouth that has a sound coming out of it, okay? Because I got it from him. So when that happens, you're getting it from him. That's the simplest, immediate version that all of you can experience. And you probably experience it, I'm hoping, and I recognize it for a lot of you, every week. All right? Which, by the way, you know this is different because when you were going to church, it didn't happen every week or every year even. I mean, you know, once you learned whatever they were teaching, that was the end of it. Okay? Some of you, I don't know how many, have watched every single teaching I've done, and still every week you're going to get something new, even if you go back and re-listen to it. That's coming from him. Okay? But there can be things, let me help you have and this is for Evan when he goes back and watches it. And this is for all of you. Reaping and sowing is a law of the universe, all right? Just like anything in physics or science or whatever that we know is a law of the universe, okay? Now, we may argue about gravity or this or that and the other thing, but when I drop this, it will fall because there's a law in the universe that this is going to drop and fall, okay? So there is a law of the universe called reaping and sowing, which simply means that if you sow, you will reap. But here's where we get all messed up, which is why Evan's probably asking the question. A lot of you have come to me recently and asked the same type of question. Well, I'm not seeing this in my life because you're looking for something too specific. If I'm sowing, I'm tithing, then I expect I'm going to get money back. Money's going to just show up in my life somewhere. Well, maybe something else that you needed more showed up in your life because you were obedient. Okay? Well, maybe I'm keeping Sabbath now and I quit my job or whatever I need to do so I can really keep Sabbath. Well, but there's something that's going to be, so what, basically I look at it this way. I'm a farmer and I planted seed here. At least that's the way I think in my head, right? Like that's the way you're thinking. You're planting seed here and then you're sitting back watching it going, all right, I'm waiting for the growth. Meanwhile, there's like 8 feet of it behind you. You're like, but I didn't sow it over there. No, you sowed. It doesn't matter where you sowed it. Okay? This is not the linear logic of human beings. You reap because you sowed. You don't reap what you sowed. Now, sometimes you might reap what you sow, but you don't reap always what you sow. You reap because. So you need to ask yourself in your life, what things have kind of unusually just kind of worked out for you, came provided for you, or that weren't there before, And then all of a sudden now they're there. A door that opens, an opportunity that opens, maybe one that could have really got you in trouble closed, and it's a good thing it closed and something didn't happen. And you start looking for these things, okay? I'm gonna mention something because I hope she doesn't get embarrassed. You know, my daughter's trying to figure this stuff out with the third tithe. She hears all you guys talk about all these great third tithe stuff, and she's been third tithing all year, and I'm so proud of her. But she's like, but I'm not seeing it because financially there were some struggles with this. I said, wait a minute. I said, but since you've been doing that, your vocal coaching business is starting, okay? Your event planning business is starting. Now you're working all the hours you want at the restaurant where your husband's the manager, you know, or whatever. You know, I guess he stepped down from that, but still. So all these other things came about during the third tithe year. And she was like, oh, okay. But she wasn't looking at it through, she didn't know what to look for. So I hope you don't mind, but I mean, I think it was a great little testimony, okay? Because she was very innocently just saying, am I missing something? Which is basically what the question is from Evan, am I missing something? And the answer is, look for those things. Maybe a relationship thing was the thing you got. Maybe it was a career thing that you got. Maybe it was just something like, you know, you thought your car was a complete disaster and you found out it was a simple fix. I mean, there's just things that you can look for that could be possibly time and chance, but they also could be him. Okay? So how do you know when it's him? Well, especially when it's something that you can't figure out why it happened or how it happened because it doesn't make any sense, that's probably him. Okay? Things that could have happened anyway, maybe it's him, maybe it's not. Remember, he causes or allows, so it's always him anyway, to whatever degree. Maybe it's time and chance, but he allowed it. Okay? Because time and chance, he could intervene and not let that happen too if he doesn't feel that it's going to take you in the right direction. So let's just keep that in mind. You are going to reap because you sow. Just don't look for it to be exactly in the mode that you sow it, okay? That's the difference. And by the way, sowing, it could take the wrong form too. You know, I had a long conversation, believe it or not, it was kind of funny, with the person who does my haircuts. And we're talking about people having issues with, you know, she had a really bad day or two, didn't get much tips or whatever. And she said, but I never had a bad attitude about it. The next day I got great tips from somebody else or whatever. And the thing is, if you're doing stuff with the wrong attitude, but you think, oh, well, I'm always so nice to people and I'm so generous with them and nobody ever helps me out, then you're not actually sowing. If you're not sowing with the right attitude and approach, because you're sowing only to get, and if you don't get, now you're going to have an attitude, you're not doing it right. Okay? You must do the right thing all the time because it's the right thing, not because it's going to bring you an immediate result. So I told my daughter this as she's been doing serving in the restaurant. Sometimes she could serve a table of people and be the greatest server, and she is the greatest server. Okay? Wonderfully friendly, gets the food, everything's great, and they'll give her almost nothing. Other times, for almost nothing that she, you know, is a very small bill, they may give her a huge tip. You do the same thing no matter what. You do the same thing no matter what. You know, do you remember there's the one that says the person got some talents and some did it, got 100-fold, some got 10-fold. So should I have not given talents to the one that only got 10-fold? No, I give the talents and they got 10-fold. I'm doing the right thing, giving out the talents. What you do with it, though, it's up to you. And so be the best in all situations and do what's right in all situations so you're sowing with the knowledge that you will absolutely reap, okay? Look, I've done things with commodity trading and that kind of stuff, Forex and currencies, and I can tell you, if you have a system that you know is sound and should work a lot of the time, it means it's not gonna work every time, then you go and do that system. Don't look at these short-term results. I can't look at my trading results on one day and go, oh, thing doesn't work. Or, oh man, this is great, it works all the time. No, it's one day. So what I'll tell all of you that are looking at things from a more short-term perspective, like my daughter was looking at the daily tips, how about looking at the weekly tips, or maybe the monthly, and see how it averaged out? Because you may have somebody with a $20 bill to pay, and they gave you a $10 tip. Well, that's pretty good. You may have another person with a $60 bill, and they only gave you a $5 tip. Well, that's not so good. What I'm just saying is look at how it averages out, okay? Don't look at that one moment. That's where we get upset. You're too caught in the moment. You know, the scripture gives us a vision of the kingdom, which is at the end of your journey through this nonsense. So why are we so focused on every day of the nonsense? Look at the bigger picture. Where were you? Let's assume for a second you've been doing this for 5 years. Where were you 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Where are you now compared to that? Now, don't tell me you didn't deal with a lot of nonsense in the journey, but be excited about there's been progress. Look, none of you, except John, none of you except one or two of you, and you, David, okay, lived here before you came and been a part of this. You came here to be a part of this. So that's a huge change in your life. You moved your life. Look at how much change that's meant in your life. I've heard some of you get up during prayer time and praise time and say, what a difference it's made being here. All right, fantastic. So be careful with the reaping and sowing. You reap absolutely because you sow, but don't you try to box in what that should look like, okay? That's really the answer. Don't try to decide that, well, it didn't look like what I hoped it would be, so I didn't get anything. You kidding me? Seriously? And by the way, it's not an immediate thing, and be happy because you could sow a lot of dumb stuff and you don't want it to blow up in your face immediately. Be happy there's a little grace period, so to speak, where grace not like the church teaches. It's like, like we talk about with your credit card bill. There's a period of time where you're not getting charged interest. There's a period where things don't blow up in your face so you can have time to fix it, make a different choice, or whatever, okay? So the reaping and sowing doesn't happen immediately, and some of it may not even happen in this life, so what are you worried about it? Are you sowing for this life? What did Yeshua say? Don't save up and store up your treasures down here. I'm sowing for down here. No, sow it for the kingdom. Store up your treasures in heaven. All right, John?
All right, second question he had was, can you go into depth about the perspective problem we have in our walk in regards to our overall life and how it compares to those who aren't in this walk? Sometimes it comes across that our life is not really much different than theirs, except for the fact that we give Yahweh credit for things and keep the commandments and they don't.
All right, look. Unless your attitude is really messed up, and by the way, there's a lot of people like that, all right? Unless your attitude is really messed up and your emotions in the negative side, your negative emotions are really ruling, you should absolutely see the quality of your life different than when it was when you were doing what they were doing, the world was doing, okay? It should be something where, some of you are old enough, remember the old commercials? This is your head, your brain, and this is your brain on drugs, right? Remember that? Okay, in other words, it should be a pretty stark contrast. Well, this is you without Torah, and this is you with Torah. That should be a stark contrast. And so if you're not paying good attention because you're negative, see, this is the problem. A life can be turned around and all the person wants to focus on is what's still not right, what still hasn't worked out. There's a book out there called Psycho-Cybernetics, okay? And it was written by a gentleman who was a surgeon. He was a plastic surgeon. And he couldn't figure out initially, which is why he ended up writing the book, why some of the people, he would take the scar away and they would still walk around with the same attitude as if the scar was still there, because it was emotional, it wasn't physical. He also couldn't figure out why other people thought the scar was like a badge of honor or something, and they loved their scar, right? So as a surgeon, he's trying to figure out what was going on here. And so your life is better. Don't you tell me and argue with me otherwise. Oh, there may be aspects that are worse. Maybe some certain things have gone sideways. Your life is better because of his popping your bubble, period. Okay, now, that being said, you have to recognize it. If you're not paying attention and don't accept that reality and see it as better, look, Abba put me on a very a very interesting journey. I went through life for 23 years with nothing but a secular Jewish life. I mean, yes, I went to Hebrew school, learned how to read Hebrew, got bar mitzvah, but that was pretty much about it. Did a few of the holy days because my parents would do Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and they would light a few candles on Hanukkah and have a Seder. But that was pretty much the end of it. We had unclean stuff in the house. We didn't keep Shabbat. So I wasn't raised with any of this stuff, right? So I lived a below earthly, fleshly life with everybody else. Okay, not any better, not any worse. Maybe I would like to think a little better, but I was just because I had my own choices, not because of a vertical thing or that it would matter to a creator or something. Then he popped my bubble and I got to live this life. Okay, I got to see a contrast. But in case that wasn't enough, he sent me on a journey for 7 years where I was back basically in the world with nothing. Okay? I'll tell that story maybe at Sukkot or something, okay? But that 7 years, I wasn't keeping Sabbath, wasn't doing anything. Well, I still wasn't eating unclean. I didn't like that food anyway. I never did. But I mean, I wasn't keeping anything for 7 years. And then he called me back. Okay, and there's a reason why I went on the journey. I just didn't reject everything, but there was a reason. But anyway, so he called me back about 11 years ago. And so then my life got back into this way of behaving and acting and thinking and believing. And so I have with and without twice. And there's no comparison. Okay? The one comparison is both times without were the same, and both times with were the same. Okay? So I can see what without and with, because it looked exactly the same. Both times without, everything was the way it was. Both times with, there's no comparison. I don't know how anybody exists without being depressed without. When they don't have him and they don't have the commandments and the Torah and the life and the instructions and the vertical and all of that other stuff. That's why everybody out there is so out of control and miserable. Because they don't have a hope. They don't have a relationship. Okay? So when you ask these questions, Evan, all right? What's the only difference just because you're going to keep the Sabbath instead of whatever? No. If you're just doing the mechanics, it hasn't transformed you. It should be a transforming experience, covenanting. And I don't mean like it's some weird charismatic way in a church or something. I mean like it changes who you are. You think in a different way. You may be going from amoral to moral. Because some of you, I'm not picking anybody, we're not all that much on the moral side, in your life. Anything went, eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. Who cares? Okay? So you have sort of a grounding compass now, aiming to true north, so to speak, to the Creator, all right? And that gives you direction, balance, and all these kind of things. Plus, you've been given something very unique. I'm not talking about everybody who's had their bubble pop, but you guys. You've been given a teacher that also has the qualifications of a life coach that gives you both in the context of Torah. Instead of just reading a few verses and mind-numbingly try to explain them in some way, whatever. I always apply it to what you need now, and there's not a teaching I did that you can't use today. You listen to the teaching, you could use it that day. There's no fluffy, interesting, here's an interesting section of Scripture. Let me just explain this thing. It doesn't have anything to do with your life, but hey, you'll find it interesting. Okay? Because I see this as a transformative vehicle to help take you from what you are to become what he is. See, and so until you see that, then no, you're going to miss it all. You're going to miss the whole thing. You're going to just think, well, we're just doing a few different actions than other people. What's the big deal? Okay? Now, if there's an area in your life that is not where it needs to be, I shouldn't say it that way, where you want it to be. Let's say your finances just never seem to get right, and now you're walking this way and it's still not right. Then you may get frustrated with him, like somehow that didn't fix your problem. Maybe you're single and you want to get married, you want to meet somebody, and then you start walking in this walk and it still doesn't get fixed. Well, then you think, what's the big deal? What's the point? Because you're comparing it to what you want instead of comparing it to what you need. And so whatever it is that's the most wanted thing in your life, the thing you desire the most, if that didn't show up all of a sudden because of this walk, you're going to think the walk doesn't work. Because after all, it didn't give you what you wanted. What's the best way to ruin somebody? Give them what they want. on a regular basis, to keep giving them what they want. I don't mean like never. I mean, but if you always give them what they want, it spoils them. And Abba wants to see, are you doing this just because I give you what you want? Are you doing this because you trust me that you're going to have everything you need, and then on top of that, some of the things you want? Okay? Do you understand that? I think I have it in here. This kind of is something that I said the other day, and I'm going to use this in the Level Up class, but I'll give it to you guys for free. All right? So, because this hit me the other day when I was counseling somebody. I want to use finances as an example, but this could be your social life, like your relational life. It could be any aspect of it. Remember what I just said? Needs and then some wants. And then beyond that, sharing and abundantly giving to other people. It could be relationally, it could be financially, it could be anything, right? So level 1 will deal with finances, that you can pay your bills. That's a need. There's no wants involved. If you're getting wants and not paying your bills, you got it all screwed up. No wants if you can't pay your bills. Why would you be doing anything you want and your bills aren't getting paid? At level 2, your bills are paid and now you're trying to get a lifestyle too. So I'm enjoying life a little bit more and getting my bills paid. So maybe I'd like to go out every now and then. Maybe I'd like to go and enjoy something that's entertaining out there, on a trip or something, whatever it is. Maybe you've never gone on a vacation, so that's a lifestyle. You're gonna add some lifestyle to it. After the needs, the wants have to come after. Same thing with all of you that are single thinking, well, I don't know why I can't get married. Well, because maybe you're not marriageable yet. Why don't you become the person you need to become so that you're a catch? That's a need, by the way, all right? I got a bunch of little girls and a bunch of little boys out there who are over the age of 20 who don't understand that they need to grow up and become men and women. And you want, well, I can't find anybody. Well, who wants to find you? I'm sorry if that's too blunt, okay? Go look in the mirror first. Think about who you are and what you bring to the table, and think about all the people out there hoping to find you someday. All you're focusing on who you're looking for. Well, you got to figure out who they're looking for, and are you that? So level 3, you got your bills paid, you have some lifestyle now. Now you have to think about someday I may want to retire. Okay? And then level 4 would be leaving a legacy on top of that. But look, each one builds on the next. So you could do this with any area of your life. Your spiritual life's similar. I'm gonna first make sure that I'm getting and understanding the Father and the Son, great teaching to understand, what they're expecting from me. So I start to take the Deuteronomy 10:12, we talked about it last night, fearing Yahweh first. I gotta learn how to do that. If you came out of a church, you never learn how to do that, okay? If you're in the world, you never learn how to do that. Oh, I fear God. No, but you don't even know what that means and what it looks like, how you can demonstrate that. Then walk in all his ways. Well, that's a learning curve thing. You gotta take a while to learn what are his ways. So it's a building block. Level 1, you start to fear the Creator. I have such awe and reverence for you. I need to do what's pleasing in your sight. Show me, right? So he says, okay, I need to keep Saturday. I need not to eat certain things. I need to do this, I need to do that. These are mechanical things. So then we get, okay, I do that, but I'm still me. Because I could be the same jerk me I was before and keep those things. I can pay my tithes, I can eat right, I can show up at feasts and do holy days and Sabbaths, I cannot murder, not commit adultery, not steal, not whatever. I can do all that, but I'm still me. Then he says, but there's another aspect of this. It's called the fruit of the Spirit. You have to find a way to do this with love, in the most challenging of situations where it's hard to love, with peace. Well, the second one would be joy, right? Love, joy, peace. So you have to have joy. Some of you don't have joy. That's a big struggle for a lot of you. And you know what? It's going to be hard to have joy, really, if you don't have peace. So don't look at the fruit of the Spirit as a sequence. These are just all the aspects. But you start looking at the person you would become if you had all 9 aspects of the fruit. What difference would that make in your behavior, in your approach to things? Oh, so now it's not just, well, I'm the same person I was before, but I'm just doing some mechanical things, which is really what Evan was asking a little bit about, right? I'm changing some mechanics. So now it's good that you're changing the mechanics, though, because that will be less of a distraction, so you can focus on other things. A little hard to focus on paying attention to all the landmarks so you remember how to get to someplace you go on a regular basis, but you still try to remember where the mirrors are and which one is the gas. Okay, when you're first starting, and you're worried about every car that's driving around and all that stuff. After a while, you get that automatically going, and then you start to remember, okay, yeah, when I get to that store, that's where I turn left. People used to ask me how I got from one place to this place on the beach in New York that I used to go to. I couldn't tell them one street we used, because I'd been there 5 million times. I just knew where they were and where to turn. Anybody have places like that? And people say, well, how do I get to this place? What street do I turn on? I have no idea. I just know by all the landmarks. Okay, I see the landmark. I know you turn right here, you turn left there. And so, but I couldn't do that if I'm still busy thinking about every car around me and what pedal to push and how fast am I going and looking and checking my mirrors like I'm supposed to relentlessly do that. Now you do it while looking forward, and peripherally you just quickly catch it. You're not even turning your head at all or anything. Okay? So yeah, you got to do the mechanics so that they're simple enough that they're just something you do without thought. You know that you're going to show up on Saturday, you're going to keep holy days, you're going to eat a certain way, you're going to do all these other mechanical things. Now you can start figuring out how to become him. See, first you're trying to figure out how to do what he did. Well, that's easy. Now you got to actually become like him in here. Personal, like the character part, the personal part. Everybody can do the mechanics, but you got to learn how to become him in terms of your thought processes in your heart. Let this mind be in you, Philippians 2:5, right? That was in Messiah Yeshua. Let that mind be in you. And so hopefully that was a great question. He asked for an in-depth answer, so that was somewhat of an in-depth answer. All right, Miss Mercy.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.
So you and EBJ have been talking about two things for the most part.
That's Elder Billy Jackson, for all of you who don't know.
EBJ. The first one is, I know one of the things that you've always said is, in concerning male and female, that women should be looking for a man who knows where he's going. But what does that look like, and what does that mean?
All right, so you should be able to ask, and in the level up class we cover different areas, so you should be asking this in different areas. So you have, of course, you have areas like health, okay? You got areas like finances, you got spiritual, social, community, okay? So you should ask him, okay, wherever we are right now, where, if I join myself to you, what's that life going to look like in those areas right now? And where are you hoping it to be or planning it to be in 5, 10, 20, whatever years? Okay? Because what happens is we have so many people, especially when they start young, and then it unfortunately doesn't change, so they're in the same place when they're 40 as they are when they're 20, is that the first thought is I need to be able to afford to move out of my parents' house and pay for an apartment and pay my bills. So you look for a job that makes that work, that you actually can qualify for as such a new person into the workplace. But you're not thinking about, which is why I want you to ask the question, that someday you're going to be 30 and then 40 and married, hopefully, and with kids or whatever it is that you're planning to do, and that first thing is not going to pay enough to do all that. So you have to have a plan, either a career that builds or that stepping stones to get you there. And so that's where you might want to listen to, or I say listen because I listen to Audible all the time. You might want to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because he'll talk about in his experience that his rich dad told him, every job, this is especially for all you new people, like into the workplace, every job should have a purpose where you're learning something. The first job, you can learn to show up and do your job. So the first job doesn't matter. But you should only be looking towards seeing if this is something that could get me to where I want to be. So the simple where I want to be is, let's see where I want to be is bills paid, lifestyle, retirement, and legacy. I want to get to all of that. And so I'm going to keep changing jobs and adjusting careers until I get that, okay? Now, if you're a little bit older, you should find somebody who's got most of that already in place. So for you, you should find a guy that's already got almost all of that in place. Okay, but if you're 25 or 20, whatever, and you're looking at somebody who's just kind of started for a few years in that area, then you want to say, Well, what's your plan to get to this? Well, first of all, I ask where they want to go. Like, where do you see us, if I decide to be with you, where do you see us in 20 years, in 30 years? You know? Look, my wife had a lot of those questions. I told you about the famous sit by the pool thing in my apartment complex in Tampa. And she said, by the way, this is what I'm looking for. If you're not all this, let me know now. And she wanted a certain type of house, car, this, life, spiritual. I mean, she had all these areas that she wanted covered. By the way, all the areas should be covered. I'm not just focusing on finance. What if you got somebody who could care less about health, but you care a lot about it? Or maybe you don't care much about it, but you really think you should. You want to find somebody who does, and maybe you can kind of, especially if you're the woman, you can learn and follow that. Or maybe you're a guy who just doesn't know a clue about that, doesn't have the time, but he wants to have a wife who can help him do the research and help get him on that side, okay? But all the areas, where do you see yourself in the vertical? Where do you see yourself as a member of the community of Elohim, all right? A member of the body. Now, they may not be there yet. So you want to first find out, where are you now? Remember the you are here thing I always talk about, like the mall map thing? Where are you now? Go 5, 10, 15, 20. Go like that. What's the plan? Where are you going to be? I told my wife when we got married, as fast as I can make it work, you won't have to work. You can still work, do whatever you want, but you won't have to work. So she knew that was part of the vision. The vision was, I was not expecting her to work forever. Okay? Unless she wanted to. Right now, she only works because she wants to, because she loves being the m.t.o.i director, okay? And the Rebbitzin. But the thing is, I told her that the vision when she first met me and she was a dental hygienist was, you won't have to if you don't want to. You can be able to do whatever you want, okay? That's my vision that I share with her. I'm not saying you have to have the same vision for anybody. I'm just saying this is what I did. So when you're asking the question, you want to know. Because most people don't think ahead of next week, or next paycheck, or next month, because they're like right about here in every aspect of their life, drowning almost. What do you mean, where am I going to be in 5 years? In the same mess I'm in now, probably. I mean, they look at you like, what? I'm busy trying to survive now. Which is why you got to work your you know what off so that you can be beyond surviving. Level 1 is survival. Bills getting paid, hopefully, okay? You can't do anything more, but some of you got level 2 mixed in with level 1, and that's why your bills don't get paid. Because you're trying to bring a lifestyle in. If you find a guy that's doing too much of that, no, that's not the guy for you. You want a guy that absolutely doesn't add lifestyle until his bill's paid, and has a plan to get to the next level, bringing lifestyle in and retirement in, because someday you may want to stop working. And by stop working, I mean the thing that you needed to do to pay the bills, not that you stopped doing anything productive, because that's death. You need something to do. My father did really well in his retirement because he had a plan for what he wanted to do as a side hustle when he retired. Something he just loved doing, did only as much as he wanted to, didn't need to make any money out of it, kept him busy. Okay, as busy as he wanted to be, all right? He did desktop publishing for local printers. He designed people's business cards, or he designed their newsletters, whatever. Just enough to keep him busy. Because he recognized busy is important, being productive. But what if you want to retire someday? I could retire. I'm not going to, don't panic. Okay? But I've worked my life to where I could probably retire easily in the next couple of years if I wanted to. Probably could do it now. But I worked for that, okay? And I planned for that. But see, but right now, I've got it to where bills are paid and lifestyle could be anything I want it to be, so why retire? Okay? Because I could have whatever lifestyle I want. And by the way, when I say this, because I don't really have a big want for lifestyle, so it's not hard to do. And so just make sure when you're looking for a guy, do that in all of those areas, though, socially. What's your thoughts? I mean, you may find out that he doesn't want to go out at all, doesn't want to hang out with people, just want whatever. Or you may find he wants to party all the time, and he wants to always be with everybody, doesn't want to just give you private time. I mean, you have to find these things out. Does that help?
To a certain extent.
I did 10 minutes of that to a certain extent.
Because I want you to kind of hammer that home for, I'm not in my 20s. I'm not in my 30s.
All right,
At some
all you
point-
men that are going to want mercy,
Oh my God.
you better...
Why?
What do you mean, why? Because this is what you wanted.
Listen, we don't have to get into all of that right now. But I'm just making blanket comments.
No, this is what you wanted, so I'm going to say it. All you guys out there who want anybody like Mercy, wink, wink. Okay. But no, there are people like her out there that are, they're not kids anymore. They have an expectation for where they are in their life, and they expect you to be established, solid, and already doing level 1, 2, 3.
Amen.
Okay? And so and that's really the point you're trying to make. I mean, I had fun with you, but it's really a good point, though. You are not the only one who's, 40 plus or whatever, who's wanting somebody like, I'm not here to rebuild something from scratch. I'm not looking for a fixer-upper. I want a guy that's got it already going on and solid.
Hallelujah! Yes.
Okay, so then why did you complain when I picked on you?
Well, sometimes you want to be discreet about your stuff.
Yeah, but you were asking the question. You know what it was like? Well, I have a friend. It's not me, it's a friend who's like 50 years old and is looking for a guy, but he has to be established or whatever.
Hey now.
No, that's your friend.
We don't be right, it's the friend.
That's the friend who's 50.
But good black don't crack, so it's okay.
All right. I'm only talking about your 50-year-old friend.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Mercy and I always have fun.
That we do.
Okay. But I knew you were trying to get your answer for you, okay? But you're not the only one that's going to be out there that has a certain level of success and doesn't want to feel like they're the breadwinner, that they have to do this to take care of him, okay? Ladies, raise them until they're 18. Don't raise anybody over 18, okay? Which is why you don't marry a boy. I don't care how old he is. You just ask him enough questions, you'll find out if you got a man or a boy. Okay? Don't marry a boy. And you guys, you got to man up. I talk to a lot of boys. I talk to 60-year-old boys, 50, 40, 30, all. I don't care how old you are. If you haven't taken care of business, as they would say.
You better preach.
Okay? Then you're still not a man. A man takes care of business. He has his ducks in a row and he takes care of business. All right? Okay? Now, I don't mind a woman attaching to a guy with a big vision and dream and he's putting in the effort and she wants to believe and support him and he hasn't quite got there yet. My wife did that with me. Okay? But I've gotten to where she's gotten everything I promised her. Took a little while, but she got everything I promised her. That's the key to all of this, all right? Okay, remember I sold her, marry me, and your life is going to be blah, blah, blah. Okay. She had a list of what it needed to look like. And I said, I'm good with that list. That's my list too. Sign on, let's go. All right? Did that answer your question now?
That did. That brings me to my second.
Good.
Let's talk about respect. Now,
R-E-S-P-C-T.
Find out what it means to me. Okay.
All right.
Anyway.
Talk about it. All right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, is it just a blanket respect that women have to have for men or wives to their husbands, or is it these are the things that I need that will warrant me to respect you? Like, is it that, or is it just, I just need to respect you?
No, it's the second one. Okay, look. You got, ladies, guys, pay attention, because when I'm telling the ladies, if you're not this, they're not going to want you, okay? So just pay attention. Even though I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to you. Ladies, marry someone you admire. That's where the respect comes from. I would be proud to be married to a man. Yeah. He's getting it done. I watch the way he treats people. I see this character, okay? So yes, have that list of criteria of what you're looking for in a man that you can respect. No, you don't owe him blanket respect. However, once you marry him, you've now committed to giving him all of that, but pick a guy you can do that with already. Okay? If you don't feel like to look and say, man, that's my man. Look, he takes good, I'm proud to say that's my man. All right? And don't be proud just because everybody's going to think, oh, he's a hunk. No. Is he got his life together? Right. okay? Because the hunk drops down around here at some point, so just so you know, okay? And then it doesn't look the same, all right? Those broad shoulders become a big belly. I don't know how it works, but it just does, okay? Look, it's the furniture disease. The chest falls into the drawers. So, happens to everybody. All right.
But where do you go, like, you're making your list. Like, I have my list. And I think I have a pretty good list. But I'm looking at that list from the point of view of Mercy, being a New Yorker, being, having this, having that, having done this, having done that. At what point do you say, okay, I can give a little here? Like, for instance, okay, I know that I'm from New York, and that comes with a set of things. You're a little harder than most people. You have a harder exterior than most people.
What you talking about?
Because you used to be in, not like I was running in the streets or anything, but
All right,
it's just New York.
I know where you're going. All right, so we got a long line here, so I'm going to get this quicker. Hold on.
Hi, guys.
All right. Look, listen, this is good for everybody. Things are relevant if they're relevant, okay? So it may make a difference if you're from the country versus the city. It may. It may make a difference if you were raised in, a certain culture versus a different culture. I'm not talking about race. I'm just talking about you could be any color, but you're raised in a country where the culture was different, and that you may not be as comfortable with some of the things, and they may not be as comfortable because you guys see the world differently, all right? All right, now my wife, her family's all Eastern European. I'm not so sure I would have been so happy with some of the things that are the way they think and act and different compared to the way I think and act, but my wife happened to be born almost immediately in Paris on her way here, so she has a mindset that's less Eastern European, but the rest of her family, I'm not against Eastern European, don't get me wrong. I'm saying as far as me meshing with that as a life partner, we see the world too differently in too many ways, often. Not always, but often. So it's not about where somebody's from. Like I said, it may or may not affect anything. But only you'll know that through interacting. Because you may realize, I just see the world too differently than they do because of these various factors. Their life experiences, maybe they've been through a bunch of stuff you've never been through, or you went through stuff they've never been through, and they just can't relate. Could be cultural. Where did you grow up? What was life like where you grew up and the way people saw everything? You may just be disconnected that way. Some of you got some age gap deals that you're working with, and so you're not going to relate the same to somebody that's got too big an age gap, maybe. Maybe. It's only relevant if it's relevant, okay? So you being a New Yorker may not be a problem for somebody that you might think, based on where they grew up, it would be, but it might be. What I want to do is this. When it comes to men and women coming together and vetting each other out, you might not like to hear this, some of you, or you might be surprised. I tell them to look for as many reasons as possible not to marry the person as to marry the person. Because if there's any reason not to, they don't want to ignore that. I don't want them to make a list and start saying, but be aware and look for, is there anything here that would drive me crazy if we kept doing it for the next 20 years, 30 years? And I don't need to say 40 or 50 because you get to 20 and you're already crazy, you're going to get a divorce anyway because they're just not going to make it any further. All right? So all of that stuff is relevant if, okay? If. I could have met somebody from Eastern Europe and had no issues with it. It just depends on how much of that culture is being brought in and my culture is being brought in and driving them crazy. Because the expectations of the roles of men and women and all these other things are different culturally for sure. I know you all can agree with that. If you come from a culture that's not like American just base, like you're not just an American base, but you've got, some sort of other part of the world mixed in, or some other, thing that comes from being Spanish or being black or being this or being that, Native American. There's some cultural things that you bring into the mix. Look, I can tell you this. You could take a black woman from New York City and try to hook her up with a guy from the Bahamas. The culture is completely different, though their skin color might be the same. Okay, and the way they see it. So it's not about skin color, it's about culture, right? Well, look, you can take a white person from New York and a white person from the middle of Mississippi, we may have some issues. Or they may certainly with me, okay? Because it's a cultural thing. And it's relevant if it's relevant, but you got to be paying attention for it. Did that work for everybody? Okay, good. Frederick.
So I have a,
You have a friend and you're asking a question.
no.
That's what everybody else did until you got up here. Michael did it, John did it, Mercy. Okay.
No, there's a sort of point that interacts with a story that doesn't make sense without a third point to explain it.
Which story?
The story of Adam and Eve and the tree and the interaction
Okay.
after. So the first point is two places in the gospel. It says your hairs on your head are numbered, and even a sparrow is noticed. Others saying that there's nowhere you can go without him being there.
Mm-hmm.
So when Yahweh comes to the garden and they're not there to greet him, and he goes, "Where are you?" But he knew.
I've explained that in teachings.
So is it that he is serving his response is serving what they're doing, where they're at?
Look. First of all, he knew that he saw, and because he sees the end from the beginning, he knew they were going to mess it up, and he could have intervened. He didn't. He let it play out, right? He let it play out. So Chava did what she did, and Adam did what he did, right? Then when he's going and calling out to them, he's basically saying, "Why are you hiding?" He's not just saying, like, "Where are you?" Like he can't find them.
Yeah.
He's like, "Why are you hiding?" First of all, it's stupid. You can't hide from me.
Yeah, but what I guess what I was trying to explain in that is, what does that say about his character, about what he's doing and why he's doing it?
What do you mean?
In other words, if he's doing something and he's asking why, but he already knows the answer, then what is it about that interaction that says something? What does that say about his character that I can try to emulate without? So if I don't distill it into this is what explains why he's going that direction when he already knew.
Okay, you don't know because you don't have children.
Yeah.
Okay?
But
wait, hold on. All of you with children.
Can I say what I think is the?
Go ahead, say what you think it is.
His answer to them is, because their action is a sort of the thing that he's responding to. A response to a question or an action is serving, at least when it comes to him, is serving them.
Yes, that's where I was going to kind of help you understand through the children thing. All of you with children have at least at some point walked up to your child, watching them do exactly what you know they're doing, and you said these words, "What are you doing?" Because you want them to think about what they're doing. You want them to acknowledge what they're doing. You want them to explain to you why they're doing it. So when he says, "Why are you hiding?" which is really what he said, "Where are you?" He's like, they need to know, look, I know you're hiding, but why? I need you to think about why. Because you did something you knew you shouldn't do. You need to come out here and own it. So it's about their growth.
Yeah.
So it is giving to them.
He's serving what they need.
Right. They needed to deal with what they did. Okay?
And again, each of the responses following that, I always scratch my head and going, but I already know that he knows that that's a twisting of it. Why does he just let it go? And again, he's serving what they need, not quibbling because he knows that's where they're at.
So all of this again, if you're a parent, you experience the same thing.
Yeah.
Every one of you has a child that lies to your face, says they didn't do it, or makes an excuse, right? Well, it's not my fault. They did it. It's not my fault. This is what happened, right? And a parent then does what? Punishes them. And that's exactly what Yahweh did. He first went to each one. Why did you do that? Didn't I tell you not to? Well, the woman you gave me, blah, 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 blah. Oh, they asked the woman. Oh, well, the serpent, he deceived me. They're all doing that human thing. So we get to see that nothing has changed. The first humans, all the way to us, same behavior pattern, same mindset. And so Yahweh says, if you're not going to own it, you're going to get some challenges, okay? I think if they had owned it, things would have been different, all right? But they didn't own it. And so things went the way they did. We have that problem. And so we can now go look back. And by the way, serving not just Adam and Chava, but us. Because we get to look at that and say, oh, okay. Not owning it brought a punishment. My children were told from the beginning, if you don't own it, it's going to be much worse than if you own it. Lie to me, it'll be even 10 times worse. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, I guess to me it was just something that was so I had been through a bunch of experiences that had twisted the idea of whose choice it was. And so,
No, it was their choice because we need
Yeah.
to learn how to deal with temptation.
But when somebody
and own
does
mistakes.
something and they're responding to you and they've done something because you've asked, it really been twisted in my mind, and so I don't get it. This doesn't make sense to me, and maybe I thought I wasn't the only one, so I wanted to.
No, it was, and hopefully the answer helped a lot of people. So we'll see how that worked out. Thank you for the question, Frederick.